After another disaster class of a Premier League game, which felt eerily similar to Ole's last days in charge, United fans are yet again questioning everything surrounding this club at the minute. There seems to be two camps though. One which largely blames the players, saying they've thrown another manager under the bus, and then there's another camp who largely blames Ten Hag and his structure for the vast failings this season. And I'll be honest, I'm leaning towards the latter, and I have done for months now. While I don't fully agree with Carragher's scathing remarks of Ten Hag,
this is one of the most poorly coached teams in the Premier League. That's a fact. That's not an opinion, that's a fact.
Unfortunately, I don't actually think he's far wrong. And I do think that throwing the manager under the bus narrative that people like to push, I think is ironically actually quite lazy. Because when you look at that starting 11, 7 of that starting 11 from last night was signed by Ten Hag. And yes, obviously injuries have played a huge part. You don't want Casemiro playing centre-back. Johnny Evans is not ideal to be starting games. But it shouldn't have gotten this bad. And it felt as though this scoreline was coming. Even up against the bottom feeders of the Premier League, this United team were heavily struggling. So it did seem as though as soon as we come up against a half-decent team, this was likely to happen. And we came up against a Palace team who were in form, were well coached, and then all of a sudden United fall apart. It shouldn't be this bad.
Stop! He's already dead.
And the first goal perfectly highlights United's problems that we've had this season. And for me, it wasn't just having young players and then randomly just switching off in a moment. It was this setup that we've had for months now in this midfield. All season long, if anything. And it highlights huge problems that Ten Hag just simply really hasn't fixed. When you look at it, this obviously set up from a throw-in. Ordinarily looks okay. But as Carragher and Young pointed out at half-time in that game, it's really actually, you've got large problems in there. And it highlights the problems United have had all season long. Yes, again, you can see the man-marking job the United do. I compared Ten Hag's system to what Bielsa used to use at Leeds, and I still stand by that. Ten Hag says that he doesn't use man-marking. But it's clear as day the United do consistently. Consistently, we have 2 8s in our midfield. This time around, it was Eriksen and Mount. They are pushed on to Will Hughes and Adam Wharton of Crystal Palace. And you can see it clear as day. There's no reason otherwise for those players to be in that position. As they pointed out in Sky Sports, the position of those midfielders, they're not of immediate danger to United. You can drop a little bit deeper. If they receive the ball then you can press onto him. But Eriksen in his position there, he's obsessed with doing that man-marking job. And you can see also, look at Wan-Bissaka as well. What's he doing? He's looking to see where his obviously man-marking job is. Where is Elise? And he can see that he's way over the other side of the pitch. So Wan-Bissaka obviously doesn't want to go in there, but he recognises obviously that he's his man. You can see him looking at him. And then that leaves then that huge space, which obviously Crystal Palace eventually exploit. They end up getting the loose ball. Elise gets it. Eriksen, Casemiro don't cover themselves in glory. United concede that first goal. But we've seen this so many times throughout the season. This isn't a new thing. This isn't down to injuries. This isn't due to personnel. We've seen this in so many games. This was months ago up against Villa at Villa Park. We managed to win that game. Don't know how. Because this was a consistent thing throughout it. You can see 2 United midfielders this time, Mino, Casemiro, pushed on up against Villa's 2 number 6s. So they pushed right up, and you can see this time around you got Villa's left winger inverted into midfield. Garnacho doesn't know where to follow him. Dalot doesn't know whether to follow him. But it ends up in Villa having that spare man in midfield and causing United problems. We got away with it on that day. We didn't up against Palace. It's as simple as that. I've said it. These problems have been there. This scoreline has been coming. Yet United simply have gotten away with it. Like teams have got used to that man marking the United do. And they know that we do it now. The Athletic article. I'm talking to obviously opposition analysis. And they can point out the obvious flaws. You invert the winger. You leave our backline super confused as to whether to step up or not. And it just causes absolute chaos. United defensively has just largely been the problem. And it's largely been why we've conceded so many shots throughout the course of this season. And then to further illustrate those issues, and it wasn't just against Palace as I've said, But you've got this sort of setup. You've got Mount pushed in, Eriksson, Mino doing that man-marking job in midfield. But how do opposition teams obviously manipulate that then? Well, you can see all you got to do is drag that midfielder out. Mino will follow him. And then you're starting to get left with a bit of a gap in midfield then. So then all a winger has to do is invert into that area. Then Wan-Bissaka doesn't want to go in there. He doesn't want to follow him into that space. Because obviously what can happen? You either get a striker pulling Evans out there, then you're leaving a space sort of obviously between the centre-backs, or you can obviously have either one of the number 6s or the full-back making that run. Then you either got to have Garnacho or Mount following them back into that left-back spot. So you're turning and you're pulling United players in and out of position. So easy to do. It's happened all season long. And this has been the problem no matter who's played. And the very first game up against Wolves, this was the setup. When Mount was first introduced into the team. Later on, McTominay came in. He got ridiculed. But it wasn't on him. He was playing as a second striker because that's what he was told to do. Most recently, we've had Fernandes and Mino in there. Same thing. It doesn't matter who's available. It doesn't matter about the injuries. These are instructions by Ten Hag. Like, calling United the worst coach team in the league is a bit harsh. But as I've said, you can see why he's saying it. I'm far from a master tactician. Don't claim to be. But I've noticed constant areas of weakness, not in only in like this rest defence, but their build-up, in obviously their pressing structure, and they've been there all season. This Palace game all they had to do was mark the middle of the pitch, and United were completely nullified, and it was embarrassing. Like, the main reason I've lost faith in Ten Hag this season is because I just don't see him changing this setup now. He's used it all season long. Doesn't matter who we sign, we can spend 200 million again. If you're going to continue to do this, you're going to get the same problems. Doesn't matter who comes back from injury. He's sort of shown no signs of changing this all season long. And then when you add in then, obviously, those crazy media comments that he comes out with.
I think we are one of the most dynamic and entertaining teams in the league in this moment by creating loads of chances, by playing good football.
I really just don't think he's helping himself. And obviously, the United hierarchy, you can show from those 7 signings United have done, how many of them are actually really going to work out long term. So obviously they haven't helped Ten Hag. No United manager have had help in the last decade. But I do just think that a large part of the blame for this season does lie on the manager's doorstep. If he does change things, if he does stay in a job and he proves me wrong, then great. Because ultimately I just want to get back to enjoying watching United play. But at the minute, it's some of the worst football, some of the most dull attacking play, some of the worst defensive stuff that I've seen from United over the last decade. And as I've said, I think a large part of the blame for that is down to the manager. But let me know what you guys think down in the comments down below. Do you still stick with Ten Hag, or have you started to go against him now after this Palace game and after the last 2 weeks? Let me know down below. As always, guys, stay tuned. Hopefully we can turn things around now. Stay tuned to Welsh Red TV to see if we do, and I'll see you in the next one.